All right, there we go. All right, you ready for this? I feel like I need eye protection or some sort of protection for my face in case for some reason it flips up and hits me. Today I'm going to show you the process of building a medieval crossbow, and it's from a kit. I'm holding the main part besides the bow. This is called the tiller. It's basically the stock of the weapon. The bow will be attached to the front, and it's usually called the prod. To keep it steady while we shape the tiller, I'm going to clamp this in place. This is exactly how it came, if you're wondering. I haven't done anything to it yet. It's made of 2 halves of wood, and they're neatly recessed where the roller nut and the trigger mechanism are going to rest inside the tiller. There are several characteristics that distinguish this crossbow model as a 15th century Central European design, though there have been some liberties taken with the materials, such as the plastic roller nut. There would have been some differences with the prod as well, and I'm going to comment on that later. By the way, this terrific kit was purchased by me from the Modern Arborister. He's got a 3-part series on his YouTube channel where he provides exact measurements and the rationale for why something is shaped a certain way. And I put the links for his web shop and his YouTube in the description of this video, and I definitely recommend subscribing. Having a pre-cut, pre-drilled tiller gives you a giant head start. It really makes the build an easy, quick one. The plan is to pretty much follow the blueprint on making this, so if you'd want to see any videos on upgrades like inlaying a horn or antler, you're gonna have to let me know in the comments. To get this tiller to look more like a crossbow instead of a formless stave, I'll chisel the edges and hopefully create some graceful curves. Crossbows don't get enough love, at least not medieval crossbows. Modern crossbows for sport or hunting are readily available. You can find them anywhere. But if you're looking for a traditional crossbow or crossbow kit or even bolts in the US, they're really hard to come by. I have noticed a few individual craftsmen on Etsy and various random crossbow related items on Cult of Athena's website, but for some reason there's not a significant amount of choices unless you're willing to pay for shipping from overseas shops and currency exchange fees and taxes you wouldn't pay in the US and so on. The absence of these types of goods in the US indicates to me that there's really not much of a market, and that's a shame. Crossbows are such fascinating weapons. Early crossbows, which are typically less elaborate, are not difficult to build, and they certainly are not difficult to operate, but they were devastating against opponents. In spite of their usefulness, they never really gained a foothold in medieval England, where the longbow was exalted for its proven military functionality. But crossbows were used extensively on the continent in places like France and Germany, Spain, Italy. There were actually 2 papal bulls issued by the Roman Catholic Church banning the use of crossbows. First in 1096, a year after the First Crusade ended, and then again in 1139. And the penalty actually carried with it excommunication. These formal prohibitions against its use didn't remove it altogether from England's military. The crossbow continued to be carried in relatively large numbers by the armies of Richard I and his successor King John and John's son Henry III. Richard I, the Lionheart he was called, you may well be aware, was actually killed by a crossbow bolt. I do want to do my own testing against mail and against plate armor and maybe distance tests as well, and see what kind of range these have. Todd's workshop should not be allowed to have all the fun. Once the chiseled edges are finished on the top and on the bottom and everything is connected, it's time to begin shaping the rear portion of the tiller. Its lines are straighter, so an everyday block plane is perfect for getting smooth lines. With a simple adjustment of the blade, it's possible to remove a ton of wood in a hurry, which can make the job easier. It'll give us a nice bevel, which will be sanded in for a refined appearance. The top of the tiller came with a slight groove, which I decided after a lot of thought should be widened to accommodate the bolts I've been making recently. You can remove wood, but you can't put it back. Some crossbows are completely flat in that area, but there's already a groove, so I decided to enlarge it just a little bit. Then we'll flip the tiller over and continue with the block plane on the bottom. Another really useful tool in shaping gentle curves is the spoke shave. With both the spoke shave and the block plane, you have to be careful not to remove too much too quickly. But these will bring the tiller into focus, and then you know what's next: sanding. Moving progressively to finer sandpaper will give it a finished look. Now we're getting really close to being finished with the tiller. It's smooth and elegant, I think, and to provide a little protection, I'll use a wool dauber and apply a coat of linseed oil, which was used historically as one option to finish wood. The linseed oil will darken over time, probably giving it a golden yellow appearance. It'll probably provide a little protection, not too much, but it'll be no trouble if we want to make modifications later, such as inlays. It's not a hard finish. The excess can be wiped off, and then I'll allow it to dry a little bit more overnight. And now it's time to lash the prod to the tiller. I wanted to coat the hemp rope with some beeswax, but my block was way too hard, so I actually ended up throwing a big chunk of beeswax in a pot and melted it and basically sunk the rope in as well. There's a bit too much on the rope, but much of the excess is going to come off during the binding process. The hemp cord now has a tacky surface. The key to this part is keeping the tension on the rope as you wind it around the prod and then around the rope itself. To assist with threading the rope behind the loop on the side, I made this little copper wire fish. It makes it super easy. There's some other methods like using a crochet needle, but I tried that and found out the wire works even better for me. Oh, and the prod itself is purported to be about 70 to 75 pounds. I haven't measured it yet on a scale, but I can definitely do that. It's a modern wood fiberglass composite, painted gray, thankfully, which was a practical choice. It goes back to something I said earlier, where you're just not going to be able to find a good steel lathe for your medieval crossbow just by doing a Google search. They're just not available in this part of the country, in this part of the world. The earliest prods would have been made of wood or natural composite. On later examples, you'd have a steel lathe. When we get to the end, or at least where we want to stop, I could have actually gone a little bit higher. We're going to add a little glue to hopefully keep the end from slipping. And then we'll tuck in the loose end. And then the prod and the metal stirrup is very secure now. Surprisingly, I used a bowstringer off camera to get the string on, and yeah, I struggled. It wasn't pretty. The trigger mechanism is so simple. It's awesome. It fits in this little groove on the bottom, and a metal pin holds it all in place. And I may have to replace the pin. It was a little bit loose. The roller nut pops right in. I was thinking it might need a slight modification though. The opening sits a little bit higher than the top face of the tiller, so I decided that I should grind it down just a little bit. Also, the bolts that I made, as opposed to the ones that came with it, do have a thicker shaft, and I'm not sure if they should rest against the bowstring when crossbow is ready to fire, but I'm thinking they should. So I modified the end of this one. It's an experiment. I have no idea if it's gonna fly. It might be too heavy. We'll see. There's also a plastic bolt rest or holder here, but I can't deal with the fact that it's plastic, so I'm not doing it. Sorry. The last part is simply tie the roller nut in place so that it doesn't pop free, and then it is ready to fire. Finally. We'll put one of these rubber tipped arrows right here. Here we go, ready? Whoa! That was some power! First thing we have to do is span it. Alright. Here we go. Alright. You ready for this? I feel like I need eye protection or some sort of protection for my face in case for some reason it flips up and hits me. But I'm ready. I think we're ready. Ready? Not even close. Should I get closer? Actually put it here in the rest, making contact. Hopefully it won't hit the front. Hopefully it looks like it will. And I'll try to aim lower this time. Here we go, ready? Oh! 2, 3. Oh! The pumpkin was grazed. It was grazed. It did survive. So sad. That was painful. I need practice. Your feedback and comments are always appreciated. And I will talk to you later. Thanks for watching today, guys. Be well, my friends.